Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Lenora Fito. I'm the Senior Editor News at National Jeweler. I'm pleased to welcome you to the latest episode of My Next Question, National Jeweler and Jewelers of America's co-branded webinar series. Today, Susan Posnock and I are co-hosting a session on how to save time with AI. We're joined by our guests Jennifer Shaheen and Ford Sakes. Before we get this webinar started, I just wanted to let attendees know that if they have a question, they can share it in the Zoom Q&A box. I will be back on at the end of the discussion to share the questions. Also, today's session is being recorded and will be available on the National Jeweler website Friday. I'm going to hand it over to Susan to get the discussion started. I'll chime in here and there, and then I'll be back to field any questions at the end. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much, Lenore, and thanks to our guests today, Jennifer and Ford. I think this is going to be a really interesting conversation. I know I was saying before we went live that I feel like beyond just business, AI is something that's touching everybody's lives. I mean, my 11-year-old son thinks that the AI and like Chat GPT and stuff like that are like actually friends that he's getting opinions on his writing and other information from directly. And I think the way that generations view it is definitely different if you've grown up surrounded by it the way young people have. But just to get things started with our conversation and focus today, um, I'd like to ask, first of all, if you guys can share some of the top ways that you've seen retailers using AI to save time. And if you can give maybe 2 or 3 specific examples that you've seen, that would be great. Um, Maybe we can start with Jennifer.
Sure. Well, thank you so much, Susan and Lenore, JA, National Jeweler, for having me. As some of you might know, this is one of my favorite topics. So I'm actually seeing a lot of our retail jewelers playing with AI in social, probably more than anything. I actually have and it's multiple age ranges. So I actually want to share that too, because I have a jeweler who's in his 70s who's really been using tools like he uses VidMax and PixelCut. Those are two of his favorites to make assets for his social. I've been working with some other jewelers who are using different tools for helping with captions. I've had a jeweler in the Midwest using it to write their radio scripts. So, I see it really depends. And then some of the other ways I've also been seeing jewelers do this is by taking some of their financials and using it as a way to understand what trends there have been over the last couple of years and talking to the AI about like what's coming. So those are a couple of ways that I'm seeing my clients use it.
And for me, I always believe that if you're asking the wrong question, the answer doesn't matter, right? And so I think that it is definitely a time saver. But if I could just put just for a minute or two a little bit of foundation here for everyone is that, the reason I would recommend you use AI is to help you get more high value customers, to increase the average transaction, to create a referral culture and help you get repeat sales. And then, of course, operational efficiency. So it's going to help you with all those areas: marketing, sales, operation, and finance. Now, then when it comes to saving time, you really have to look at the customer journey from A to Z and ask yourself, at what point in this process should AI be used? I mean, everybody and their brother right now is an AI expert and everybody's talking about it, which is one of the reasons that we're here today to explore. And I think the real thing is your mind shift of how to leverage AI. And so as business owners or staff members, independent jewelry stores, really what you want to make sure you do is you have an acceptable use policy that tells your staff what's acceptable and what's not. And at the end of this, I'll give everybody a free bonus, which is a 60-minute video training that you can go through. There's nothing to buy, and along with a brand style guide and some things to help you, because in the hour that we have, and we're going to do Q&A, you can't answer everything. So make sure you're here, you stick around. We'll make sure we get you that bonus.
And if it's okay, Susan, can I build on that a little bit?
Absolutely.
I completely agree with Ford. And one of the things that I've heard from when I do my AI trainings is um, as jewelers, you're the expert in your business, and how you're going to prompt is going to be different. So you're going to get different outcomes. And I think that's one of the reasons why people have the problems they'll have when they watch, to Ford's point, some of those generic YouTube videos out there, because you really have to bring your knowledge level and your understanding of this industry, and your business acumen. I think that is one of the things that I get better results out of the AIs that I use, because I bring my 25 years of business experience into that. And I could probably say I've seen Ford speak before, and he does the same thing. You know, you bring your knowledge into it, and you're going to get better outcomes based on your knowledge and how you translate that, you know, into the tools you're using. So I appreciated the foundational approach.
Definitely. You mentioned, actually, I'm drawing a blank on the specific wording that you used, Ford, but just talking about having policies in place for
Acceptable
how to
use
use
policy.
AI.
Yeah.
Yeah, can you speak a little bit more to that, in terms of, you know, how should retailers go do that? Are there templates out there that, you know, for guidance on issues like that? And how does
Certainly.
a
Well,
retailer actually put that together?
certainly I'll give you a quick little framework real quick. Um, so AI adoption integration, and I'm going to spotlight myself, not take away from everybody else, but then that way the people that are on a computer can see. Actually, I'm not a co-host, so I can't spotlight myself. So I'll just skip it. But foster a culture of AI literacy. So make sure that you are doing what you're doing now. You're joining this webinar, you're participating, and you're learning things. Number two, make the tools that you're using accessible. Like Jennifer said, whether it's Canva or this tool, whatever the approved tools are, making you have instructions around them. Number three, you want to cultivate AI champions on your team. There's probably people on your team, if you surveyed them, that are already champions, that are already using AI, and then they can become like a little mini committee for you. Number four, you want to incentivize. What are you doing to incentivize and reward the people that are using AI to save you time? Back to the point of this first question, it'll save you time if they understand how to use the tool. I mean, I can go to Lowe's or Home Depot and buy a bunch of tools and throw them in the backyard and say, build a house, but that doesn't always work that way, right? So incentivize the people. Number five, set up communication channels. Most of you have some type of, whether it's a bulletin board or a workbook or a study guide or a Slack channel or a Teams channel. Set up a channel around the communication. Don't worry, I'm not going all day. Number six, this is the one that we were just talking about, which is create policies to ensure ethical AI usage, data protection, which is a big one. So like Jennifer said, you can use it to monitor financial trends and average transactions and system-wide sales and ratios, but you want to make sure you set your defaults up. And again, and then the final answer is, okay, what about the human advantage? When everybody goes high tech, you want to stay high touch. And so, I know we're covering a lot in a short period of time. And when you take notes, what I hope you do is you take notes for things you want to learn more about, things you're going to hire, someone like Jennifer or I that you could reach out to get training for your team, because why you don't want to try to reinvent the wheel. And what things are you going to pursue more? So what do you need to know? Who do you need to hire? And what are you going to do?
I love
Back to you,
that.
Susan.
I absolutely love that. I agree. I work with a lot of lawyers too, so I've been trained since day one to read the terms and conditions, and so I definitely encourage you to understand those tools. I know last year I spoke at JCK, and I actually had someone mention they used an AI to make a headshot, and I went and read the terms of use on that, and I was like, I don't know that I would use that tool, because you just gave them rights to now use your face over and over. I see. And I think it's really important that we understand what we're giving the AI permissions to use, especially when it is proprietary information for our stores or our businesses. So I dropped in the chat, on our website, we actually did create an AI policy, because we want clients to understand that we do use AI to help, but how we use it. And so I love your points, Ford. They were so, poignant because it's really important that we share that we're doing it and not hide it. And it's funny, every time I do a presentation and I have a graphic made by AI, I always put it was made by Dolly, or this was done by somebody else. So I think disclosures are really important as well, especially now with jewelry, because you are seeing more and more customers starting to play with these tools to make things themselves. And I think it's important that the industry understand that, how consumers are starting to play around with these tools.
Yep.
I think that's a great point, and also the fact that you have to think about your internal policies, obviously, but also I'm glad that you mentioned being clear how you're using AI in dealing with your customers as well. In terms of tools, can you guys share what do you have? Is it possible to narrow it down to what your favorite AI tool is? And in two parts, for your business, or even just generally for personal use, what's your favorite tool?
Jennifer, I'll let you go first if you want.
Sure.
I mean, I'm happy to go. But I'll just be polite here. I'll go ahead, Jennifer.
No, I think, Susan, for me, it depends on what I'm doing. So I probably use AI 50% of my day, depending upon what I'm doing. I spend time in Claude. I have certain things set up specifically in Claude for me. I've have certain voices already built out, and I use that to, help me with content writing. So that's one of my favorite tools. I don't think I Google anymore. I use Perplexity pretty much all the time. I actually used to have Search GPT, but I didn't like the way it came out. I think Perplexity personally does a better job. But then in my personal life, I use these tools. Thank you. That's great. Claude's got some stuff up there. I really use them also fun enough for like when I'm at a bar and I can't think of what I want to order. I want this kind of drink. And as silly as that kind of stuff sounds like, I think if you can adopt some of this behaviors in your personal life, you're probably going to be more into asking about doing it in your professional life. And I could go on, but I'll let Ford take you from here, because I think the thing is, there's too many tools now that have AI in them for me to just say, these are the ones that I use. I just use it so much.
I would think of framing this question as AI is a feature, not a product. So it's not so much which tool. To give you some real basics for sure. Everybody would want to go and download, ChatGPT, get it on your phone, because that's where you should start. So depending on level 1, you're a beginner, and level 10, you think you're a rock star. Definitely ChatGPT would be where I would start this conversation. Keeping in mind that all these tools now are multimodal. They can read, they can see, they can talk, they can speak, they can do everything. And so understanding how to use it from that standpoint. So one of my favorite things to do right now is to just go into ChatGPT, and I'll just go in and we'll just do this quickly. We'll put my camera up here and I'll just say, "Hey, you there?
Hey, what's up?
Hey, I'm doing a webinar right now and I'm a guest, so I only have a couple seconds because we're trying to take turns. I'm doing a webinar on AI for Jewelers of America and National Jewelers. Can you just say hi to the audience, please?"
Sure thing. Hi, everyone. Great to be here.
Now, one of the questions they just asked is, what is our favorite tool? And, there's thousands of tools out there. So what advice would you give to independent jewelers that are trying to learn how to leverage the power of AI? Where should they start? But keep your answer concise.
Absolutely. Start with tools that streamline your customer interactions, like AI-powered chatbots. They're user-friendly, boost engagement, and give you quick wins. Then explore inventory management systems with AI to optimize stock.
Okay. I got to go back. Just tell them thank you.
Sure. Thank you all. Enjoy the webinar.
So my tool would be to use AI to find the tool. Just like Jennifer said, when she goes to a restaurant, she might use AI to determine what she wants to eat or what's in the recipe. So the key is to remember that it's multimodal. It can read, it can write, it can see, and it can speak. And the last thing I'm just going to shout out before we go on is Jennifer mentioned this earlier, was about prompting. The biggest mistake people make when they're prompting is they treat AI like Google. They ask for one thing. Write me a 900-word blog post on this, or why is cubic zirconia different than this, or how do I onboard a salesperson? But I would recommend that instead of having just questions, that you think in terms of conversations, just like you saw me do. I had a conversation. AI is getting smarter where it sounds more human. You can interrupt, it talks, it back skips, it does connectors like, because they've programmed it to be more human for adoption. And then humans are using AI because they want to sound more professional. But what I would say at the end of this is the favorite tool should be the one you use. Find the tool that solves the biggest need, but start simple and then get complicated. Otherwise, you'll get caught up in the bells and whistles and spending a bunch of money you don't need to spend.
That is both very enlightening and very frightening. Having a conversation with your phone and with AI. I mean, again, I've seen it in my own life as well, and I'm at the point where I've already heard responses like the one you just shared, but it's still kind of overwhelming how real these things can sound. To that point, I know a lot of jewelers have started using it for things like chatbots. In terms of using it and using it for things like customization and personalization, what are some tips that you have to avoid sounding fake? I mean, even though honestly, the technology is getting to the point where, you know, it's pretty easy to fool people if they're not looking for it. But what are some ways that you're suggesting to your clients that can keep it real, basically?
Okay, Jennifer, I'll go first this time. What I would say is certainly set up your defaults. Regardless of what program you're using, it doesn't matter, ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, and we could name them for the hours. Whatever tool you're using, go in and read the defaults, which can say, keep my data private. So that's one of the biggest things that by default, it's not on. But when you turn that on, then that way the information that you're uploading into the AI system is used in AI, but it's not going to necessarily be used to train the AI. And AI is going to be in everything. It's going to be in your cars, your homes, your devices. It's not a web browser. It really isn't. It's going to be integrated into every system. Microsoft has Copilot built into it. Google has Gemini. Amazon has Claude. There's no shortage of tools. But as business owners or executives looking at this through the eyes of the wheel of wisdom of marketing, sales, operation, and finance, what is something that you do on a regular basis more than once? And that should trigger you to say, you know what? I'm going to find a tool for that. And what's happening right now in the levels of AI, which again, we won't go through this whole thing, but this will just give you a quick understanding. Everybody on this call is at one of these 4 levels. Level 1, they're just using ChatGPT and they're playing with AI. Just like Susan. Susan's like, okay, I'm going to use these tools. I'm not quite sure how to adopt them. And she's at level 1. And there's millions of people at that level. Level 2 is where Jennifer mentioned some apps, like maybe Canva, or like I've got a bunch that I use. These are my favorites. So Canva and HeyGen and Notebook LM and all these. But there's thousands. So do not worry about, well, hey, he didn't cover all that. That's not important. What's important is that you just understand that there's different levels to it. And lastly, AI agents. So right now you can set up an agent. So like Jennifer and I'm sure Jennifer does, but I'm a keynote speaker, and I travel and speak at organizations, and that's what I do. Well, I have an AI agent just for speaking. I have an AI agent for legal. I have an AI agent for HR that have been trained on my business and I have a co-CEO. So if I'm having a challenge with something, I can open up ChatGPT. It knows me, it knows my brand, and I can ask it a clarifying question, and you'd be amazed. And to wrap up my answer, the biggest challenge going forward is you're not going to know the difference between what's real and what's fake. So it's going to make the retail experience even more valuable, because as everybody shifts high tech, you want to make sure that you do, maintain the human touch, because that's where your real competitive advantage is going to be, is in is not just replacing it. Like you can answer the phones with AI, doesn't mean you should. We all know that when you've call into a company and they say press 1 for English, press 2 for this, press your blood pressure boils because you're like, I just want to talk to a human. And that's what's going to happen with AI is everybody's going to run to adopt AI, but the companies that are going to be successful are strategically implementing it. Back to you, Jennifer.
Thank you, Ford. Susan, I'll take another part to the question because I think you also mentioned personalization. I literally just gave a talk at the National Hardware Show around personalization and hoping to give the same talk in the jewelry industry. But basically, I see a lot of opportunity on the personalization side. And it's because I think in our industry, we have a tendency to send out too many mass messages. And what's happening is the independent jewelers, their high touches in store, but it really can be so much more digital and it can be at each phase. So earlier you heard Ford mention, the buying journey. And I think this is a really important point where we can actually dig into higher touch through digital. And this is what, by the way, the younger generations really are looking for. You're seeing more and more AI adoption from younger shoppers. And part of it is because of the elements of personalization, because those tools start to learn about them. And so like a couple that I brought to the table today just to let people know about is two things I want to bring up. Is the first is that to be personalized, you have to have good data. And you have to have good zero-party data, meaning what the customer has told you, and you've actually synthesized cleanly. And then you need first-party data too. So things that you're getting from that customer while they're doing certain things like shopping on your website, engaging with your emails, your SMS, your chat systems. So if you're not taking these elements, these two first and zero-party data, and synthesizing this into elements of personalization, AI isn't going to do anything better for you because you need to build that in. And like one of my favorite tools that I've been introducing stores to is I found this great system called Maverick. And what they do is you record an actual video. So it is not an AI, it's not an avatar. You record the video and you leave a space for it to fill in the customer's name. And it's a personal, but instead of sending that out to someone at the beginning of the journey, you might send it out partway through where now you've acknowledged they've looked at particular jewelry in your store or they've stopped in for repairs. So these are like little ways we can take the combination and put it into artificial intelligence and give the customer that high touch experience that they expect from smaller businesses and why they work with independents. And I guarantee you somebody will walk in and go, that was so cool. You sent me that video. That's how people react to things at every generation.
That is pretty cool. I'm going to just ask one more question before passing it over to Lenore, because I know she has some questions as well. Obviously, the jewelry industry has been using social media more and more. I think it's just the norm now. I think you mentioned right at the beginning, Jennifer, that that's something that people have adapted to really quickly and using it for, things like posts on social media. But if you guys can dig in a little bit deeper in terms of, the effective way that companies can use social media and sort of marry the two technologies together for the best results.
Okay, certainly. Well, let's demystify social media in just a few minutes here. First of all social media websites are just communication channels. So don't get seduced by the channel. Ask yourself, where do my customers congregate and what is the best information for each channel? Because each channel, Facebook is much different than LinkedIn, for example, but even as an independent jewelry operator or in the industry, having your LinkedIn profile and your employees' LinkedIn profiles helps to attract a high-end customer. So first, understanding social media before you worry about AI is it's just a communication tool. What can you have? You can have a profile and you can communicate. So first step would be go look at your social media, go look at your digital footprint, see what's showing up there. Number two, it's what shows up in the search engines. All those social media websites are authority websites. So when you put content in there, that helps you come up in the search engines. Although I just want to caution everybody that the future of SEO is dead, in my opinion. I mean, you're still going to use SEO and putting keywords in blogs, but all boats rise with the tide. When everybody can use AI to write a blog or to create a lead magnet or to create a follow-up sequence, it's going to be harder to stand out from the competition. So I want to caution you that you should still do it because most people aren't using it, but the future you want to be preparing down the road. As far as leveraging it, you can use AI to help you with the ideas, with the marketing calendar, with the outbound sales script, with the sales playbook, helping you create posts, whether they're faceless posts or avatar posts. The avatars have gotten pretty good now to where I can take Jennifer. You've got a book, don't you, Jennifer? What's your book?
I don't have a book yet.
What's your key topic though that you do most of the time?
Believe it or not, it's actually this. I do
Perfect.
a lot around AI. Yep. Mhm.
Right. So let's say Jennifer puts up one of her presentations into an AI agent. The AI agent looks at her expertise and creates 25 short form videos, takes the text, sends it out, writes the script. She approves the script, goes out to a voice program like 11 Labs, creates an audio in her voice that you can't tell is AI. You will not be able to tell that it's an AI voice, and then actually creates videos on it. So for example, I'm going to play just 1 second of something. This is all AI voice. So let's see, if I didn't tell you, could you tell?
In a world where business success is constantly redefined, Ford Sakes has helped companies generate over $1 billion in sales worldwide. From startups to Fortune 500s, Ford is widely recognized as a business growth accelerator with over 20 years of experience.
So that's an AI voice. So if you think about the things you're trying to do for training your staff, what could you create that anything you have to do over and over? If you're onboarding a new sales person or you're doing some training, you could take your training manuals and create AI avatar trainings, and then it saves you time, back to the first question, because now you're duplicating your leverage and your experience, especially with the different ages and generations. You've got people that are aging out of their business and they're taking all this brain trust with them, right? Well, you could have them do a brain dump of all their expertise and create a whole training course on someone that maybe has 20 years experience in your business. Before they leave, you can capture that. So again, the thing I would take away is if you think it, you can do it. Jennifer?
Thank you. So building a little bit from a different perspective on what Ford talked about, one of the things that I think is really helpful for social media is iterations, especially when we're talking about ads. So if you're wondering in your market what style will perform better, this is a great place for you to be able to use AI. Years ago, before we had AI, at least known to us as much as it is, it's always been there. I always want to remind people of that because I think people forget AI has been around a lot longer than we really realize. But there was this article Facebook put out. I swear to God, it was like 2018. I had a blog on it, like people in red shirts used to perform better in ads. So kind of taking the fact that, all our knowledge, this is just a tool. So this is a great opportunity for you to say, what style jewelry is going to perform better on what market. And that's one of the ways that, I think we see a lot of, use of iterations for social media specifically, where it would take that jeweler a lot more time to create that many ads, and then you can put those out there and test those with a bit, more clarity. And that I think is one of the ways I've been kind of guiding. And another is I actually have a class on this on the 22nd, but one of the tools that I've been teaching my stores is how to use artificial intelligence to really do competitive analysis, very specifically going through each of the competitors in their market, reviewing information, understanding how to put that into the tools, and actually outline where the opportunities are. Because the nice thing about social, right, is it's open for all of us. So we can start to see what's resonating in our own communities and then use this as a sounding board to help us, grow the connections or find the missing opportunity in your community. And that's one of the ways that I've been, training the industry a bit more on how to use AI.
That's great. I'm going to go ahead and switch things over to Lenore, who I know has some questions for our guests as well. Take it away.
Thank you so much, Susan. Yeah, so I'm going to jump in with a few of my questions, and then we're going to get to some of our audience questions. So we've been talking about the cool things that AI can do, but I'm going to come in here with a bit of a buzzkill question. I've also been hearing a lot of concerns about the environmental impact of AI. And I think this poses an issue in particular for jewelers who are focused on sustainability in their business practices. So I'm going to direct this question to Ford. How should retailers balance the usefulness of AI with its environmental impact?
Well, I think, again, the first thought that came to my mind is if you're asking the wrong question, the answer doesn't matter. I think that's a great question. I think it's a concern. It's a national concern, a worldwide concern. I also go back to, as a business owner and who, I spend my time traveling the world helping brands grow. And, there's all these challenges. There's all these external challenges. There's increased competition. There's generational differences. And then there's the environmental, and then there's regulations. And one of the things with AI is there's different regulations in different countries. So you can use AI in US differently than if you're using it and you have a global brand. So there's a lot of things. As far as the environmental impact, I would say I always focus on what I can control, which is my attitude, my self-talk, my allocation of time, am I spending the time on the highest and best use, and what actions can I take? So certainly if you're involved in something like that, getting involved at your community level, paying attention to the news, and looking how you can be involved in committees or associations like this, where you can become on the committee for advocacy to help that. At the end of the day, this is a freight train. You're not going to put the genie back in the bottle. This is not going away. This is not a fad. It's going to, right now there's a lot of investors that are investing in real estate because they know they're having to create power plants, which are going to have to power all the AI. So I think that there's a ripple effect. When Uber came out, and again, Jennifer said she worked with a lot of attorneys. I worked with a lot of attorneys too. And I remember what happened. I had a whole group of DUI attorneys. They lost their businesses because when Uber came out, it disrupted all the other businesses. So I think what you're asking, Lenore, is a really important question, because it's not just AI, it's what is it going to do to our school system, our education system, the social dynamics of a buying experience. Younger generations do not want to talk to people. They would rather have an experience. And I mean this not as a wide brush, obviously everybody likes to talk, but to look forward. So if this is a question on your mind, be proactive. What can you do to be on a committee that can help create legislature or impact social change? But I always say if you've got the time to do that. Otherwise, I want you to spend the time on your business and adding value and asking questions about how can I improve the customer experience? Because again, if you're in this business, this is a luxury item. Like, this isn't a necessity. So you want to look at how do you remain competitive and stand out from the increased competition so there isn't a disruptor that kills a category. Kind of a long road to a tiny house there.
No, I think that's fair. And to your point, there are some mitigating actions you can take if that is a concern of yours. And for my next question, and I think Susan touched on this a little bit earlier, whether we're talking about environmental impact or privacy concerns, I think that there has been some wariness on the part of consumers since AI came more into the public consciousness. Do you think consumer sentiment on AI is changing, and does it affect their views on businesses who use it? I can bring this to Jennifer.
Sure. I think it's depends on which study you read.
Fair.
I'm going to be honest, for two reasons. So first off, um, McKinsey, I read a lot of their studies. I follow a lot of AI messaging, and 45% of consumers now would trust information that they receive from an AI chatbot, which is up from the previous year. So it increased 5%, whereas like 61% of US customers have used AI, either chat GPT or Gemini for online shopping help. And I'll tell you, last year when I was getting ready to get a new car, that is exactly what I did. Is I used it and I was comparing and contrasting, each model. I was asking it questions. I was telling it to go get it. And because I was using Perplexity, it was citing the location so I could see what Reddit was telling me. Now, this was before I could exclude Reddit, but I actually really liked that. And I think that what we're starting to see is, yes, the adoption is actually growing, but sentiment is going to vary depending upon who you're talking to. And I think the other thing we have to remember, because in the jewelry industry, we're as much impacted by this as anything else, is we hear the word the Amazon effect, right? Is a lot of us had to change our businesses and become more digital back in 20 years ago because of Amazon. Well, this is happening right now again. You have the Amazons, you have Lowe's actually literally has partnered with ChatGPT and has a ChatGPT in their website. Home Depot now has an AI. So the larger big box organizations train people's behavior, and whether we want to admit it or not, sentiment might be not so high for some people, but we kind of have to pay attention to. I agree with Ford said, the genie's out of the bottle. So we're going to have to kind of get on that bandwagon a bit. But I definitely always say, pay attention to it with some guardrails. I wanted to bring up one thing that Ford had brought up security earlier, and I forgot to mention, and I wanted to bring it up because I do think it's so important. One of the things that I've been educating my jewelers to get away from is voice recognition elements for security in their businesses, especially if, like, I know I speak publicly. I was speaking to a head of IT for a company that I'm involved with, and I said, more and more of those voice generated fakes now are easier and faster. So I've been telling my jewelry stores, for security purposes, because we're always a target in this industry, to make sure that they have protocols in place for if they get a phone call from an employee, that they call them back on another number and kind of find an old school process. So I wanted to bring that up while it was top of mind, because I think it's really important to keep reminding. I love this. I drank the Kool-Aid, but I also see some of the risks as we're talking about sentiment, Lenore.
Yeah, before you go to
Definitely
the next
fair.
question, Lenore,
Mhm.
I recommend that everybody creates a safe word with your spouse and your family. So it's a private word that if someone calls, you can ask them a question. It's great for if you've got kids in college, because what'll happen is they'll social engineer, find out, like if Jennifer had kids and I found out where her kids went to school, I could call and I can take voice off of. Do you have any kids? Anybody in the call here? Does anybody have kids? Okay, Susan. Okay, we'll use you, Susan. So, how old are they, Susan?
Sorry, my son is 11 in middle school.
Okay,
So yeah.
so they could actually, if he'd ever done any YouTube videos, or if they'd ever, 3 seconds of his voice is all it takes. They can clone his voice, call, and he can say, "Mom, I'm at school, and I broke a case, and they're gonna arrest me. You need to transfer it." This is a really odd conversation, but you get the point. Where what'll happen is people will end up transferring money, or, "Hey, I need to fill out a form. Can you give me?" And they'll call back 3 or 4 times. The next thing you know, they've got access. It's the same thing with all the scammers doing right now when they're calling and saying, hey, I'm calling from Bank of America, Susan. Did you just charge $199 on your account at Lowe's? And you're going to say no. And then they'll say, well, in order to verify that I'm speaking to the right person, will you verify? And so you give them all this information because you're trying to prevent a fraud. And so AI has gotten better at hacking. You're knowing what's real, what's fake. This is a video from a year ago, but watch how simple this is. There's really only 4 ways to grow a business. Number 1, you want more clients, but we don't want more clients. We want higher value clients. Número 2, aumentar la transacción promedio. Sucede al agrupar. So there you can see me speaking 4 different languages. That was all AI driven. That avatar was AI. My voice was AI. That was not real. But I would challenge you to know that that wasn't a real person.
Yeah, these are all good points that you guys are bringing up. I'm going to go on to my last question for you. For everything that AI can do, it's not perfect. So for my last question, where do you all think AI is lacking and what is still better done by a person? Jennifer, I'll start with you.
Well, it's kind of difficult because it's a very difficult question. For me, it is because where AI is lacking today, it may not lack tomorrow. And the evolution is moving so quickly. One of my favorite AI, like who I follow, is Ethan Mollick. He's written a great book called Co-Intelligence, and you should listen to the audiobook because he actually has the AI in it. But thing is, like, that was 2 years ago and it's still relevant, but the point he makes is it's always evolving. So I think the thing that humans, and this is going to sound like a very broad word, but judgment is such an important part, like to the human sense. And by the way, that's going to vary, right? So even though I say judgment, like it's same thing with taste. Like one of the things we talk about with design is, AI is AI good at design? It's all about the taste. So some people think it is. And so it's a really difficult question, Lenore, for me. And I don't have a cut and dry answer. I bet Ford has a really great reply. But for me, I feel like AI, it's not lacking in a lot of ways for me because maybe my skill level at getting what I want from it is better than someone else's. But as they make it easier for you to get what you want from it, and some of the newer tools that are coming out is going to continually improve that. So I think we have to look at like we have to bring our judgment to their table, our taste to the table, our ethics to the table. And those are some things that you're not going to necessarily see with AI. It can be programmed in there to have those things, by the way. But I think that's probably the 3 things that I think humans are better at, hopefully: judgment, taste, and ethics.
Fair enough.
And I think that, the greatest risk isn't adopting AI too soon. It's waiting too long and falling behind.
Yeah.
And the real question here is, I would say the action step, not question, is to be open-minded, be a critical thinker, be coachable, be proactive, and be accountable for what it does. AI is going to be used everywhere, and it's not years from now. We're talking months. Like it's accelerating so quickly, which is why this is such a great topic for today's session for the program, is because depending on where you are in the role of your business, it affects all roles. So it doesn't matter, again, whether you're in operations, marketing, sales, or customer experience, whether you're in leadership or owners or investments, it doesn't matter. It's being used everywhere, and it's not being used with guardrails. It's not being used with transparency. A lot of people are creating things and they're not telling you because it's the wild, wild, wild west on steroids. And the problem is AI is like a toaster on autocomplete. It simulates human behavior. It's not human. Now, we could argue all day long with generative AI and it's all the levels, and Jennifer and I would have a really deep conversation because we're in that industry. But it is getting to be like a sentient being. And so my action step and the takeaway is treat your AI tools as an expert, but monitor them like they're an intern. So if they're going to come to work for you as an employee, you're going to train me on your best practices and the do's and don'ts. Treat me as an expert, but you have to have that human touch to make sure you're reiterating and everything else, which is, again, we've covered a lot, and I know we've got some questions from the audience we're going to go to, but that video that I put in is not just a lead magnet. I'm going to put it back in the text. If you want the training, it's 60 minutes and I go into more depth, and it has 60 ways you can use AI in a retail business, because you could go down the rabbit hole like Jennifer and I do at 3 a.m. when we're reading blogs and we're learning new things. And at the end of the day, though, stop and ask yourself, what's my outcome? Stay outcome focused first. What's the highest? And then look at what you need, as opposed to trying to do more. Some things will make you smarter, but they won't make you any more money. And I'm all about money and growing a business, which is not about money, by the way. It's about adding value. So how can you add more value is really the key. Back to you, Lenore.
Got it. Well, thank you guys. This was a really great discussion. That is the end of my questions, but I am going to get to some of the audience questions. As a reminder, you can still type questions into the Zoom Q&A box, and we'll try to get to as many as we can. I'm going to kick off the Q&A with some questions that were submitted beforehand. So one that I have here, they asked, when using AI, how do you make sure the messaging is consistent with your brand voice?
I'll
I can
take
go to
a really
Jennifer
quick one.
first.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh, sorry,
whoever.
Jennifer. All right, I'll be
Please
really quick.
continue.
The really quick answer is train the AI to be your trained voice. So you can set up a custom AI agent, upload all your documents, upload all your style. So train it. If you want it to do something, the action step is train it, and you can actually use AI to help you train it. You can go to Perplexity and say, I'm an independent retailer in Louisiana, and this is my brand, and we've been in business for 47 years, and this is our ideal client, and this is what we do, and here's our sales messages, and then it'll work like you want. Sorry, Jennifer, I double stepped.
That's okay. That's exactly what Ford explained. With something like this is actually what we're doing. I would use something like a custom GPT for it too, so that you can keep going back to it. Ford also mentioned a tool earlier that I'm like absolutely in love with, which is Notebook LM. What I like about Notebook LM is that it does keep everything private. So I think that's one of my favorite things about it. And I feel better putting, the documentation in there. So the privacy side, I think, is really going to be important for, what tool you use for that, so that you can keep asking same questions. And it can be a great way for you to understand, even things you didn't know about yourself. Because it's funny how people don't realize they think and they think their tone is one thing, and then they ask the AI, and we teach people to ask the AI, well, what is the tone that you're getting? And they're like, well, that's not what I thought I was. So, but it's helpful because what we say and what people hear and always the same thing. So the tool can really help you work through that.
Gotcha. Sorry, I'm just reading through the questions here. So Michael in the chat said he's searching for an AI software that can create a digital version of himself so that he can create marketing videos. Do either of you have a good suggestion for someone trying to do that?
Yeah, I recommend you go and you check out HeyGen.
Mhm.
I'll put it full screen so you can see it. No camera, no crew, no problem. So you can go to that bit.ly link, or you can just Google HeyGen to begin with. And HeyGen you can create your avatar by training it. And then you can have someone on your team write scripts. Now, if I use it, I do transparently let someone know. So I was hired, for example, to go speak in Canada, and they asked me if I could create my presentation with French subtitles. And I said, well, what if I just do the whole presentation in French? And they said, well, you don't speak French. I said, I know. So when I went to HeyGen to record it, so you can either create the avatar and it can do text to video, or you can just upload the video and it can convert it. And I went ahead and did my whole presentation, my 75-minute keynote in English, But when I started, I just said, "Hey, this is Ford Sakes, Business Growth Accelerator. I know that they asked me to do this presentation with French subtitles, but I decided I would use AI, and it wasn't my presentation wasn't on AI; it was on business growth. And I said, so please, I'm going to do it in French, but please forgive any dialect issues. You can blame it on AI." And they loved it because I was the only speaker that actually presented in French that didn't speak French. And so there are definitely tools out there, but just like Jennifer said, well, that's the tool as of 1:49 Central Time on April 8th, but by tonight it could be a different tool. So again, don't get seduced by the technology. Is it going to produce the result?
Gotcha. Something to add, Jennifer?
No, actually, Ford answered a question in the chat about what is the best AI platform to use for images for social media. And one of the things I just wanted to add to that question, if you don't mind, Lenore, is
Please.
he mentioned Canva. I actually did a battle between the tools. And because of jewelry and fingers, some tools don't do as well. So I want to mention, there are tons of tools out there. First off, if you haven't read it, GIA has a great article out about AI with jewelry. So I would encourage you to go check it out. But I would say there's a ton of them to look at, but I think you also want to test it against each of them. And the other note I want to make about that is that Sora, which I love for videos, now has some guardrails on it where you're not allowed to do certain things with people. So when you're asking that question, like what's the best tool to use for create, it really is going to depend on the types of images you're creating, and then also what your expectation is. Is it humans? Is it only on a hand? So, and then make sure you're looking at like if it's your original jewelry, I don't know that you want to put your jewelry in Midjourney. Like,
Mhm.
you know what I'm saying? So it's such a big question with the fact that I want you to be careful. If you're an original designer, I don't want you to put your original designs into a tool that then other people will iterate off of. So, so just keep that in mind with the programs that are out there, like Midjourney, Stable Diffusion, Adobe Firefly, Canva is a little different. So just certain things to think about there.
And the last thing I'd say on that is the tool, this is like the .com boom all over again.
It is.
So if you guys can remember when websites were created and at the end of the day, there'll be some major players, but right now everybody's competing for eyeballs. So last week, ChatGPT's DALL-E dramatically improved the images. Prior to that, I wouldn't even use them because they were just not good. Now the images are unbelievable. So if you haven't tried creating an image in ChatGPT 4.0, you should probably go check that out later. So it's really about, like she said, and I don't want to just echo because she already said it, but don't get seduced by the tool if it's working, and then have one eye open on the liability, on who owns the imagery, and the terms of service.
Yeah, definitely good points for independent designers to take into consideration. I have a question here from Elizabeth. She says, our team has had issues with ChatGPT citing incorrect resources and giving false facts. How do we avoid that? Whoever wants to take that first. I say Jennifer.
Sure. So first off, at the end of the day, and you have to understand what you're asking. So, and I personally don't often use ChatGPT for things like that because one, I found, and I don't know, Ford, if you've experienced this, but personally, I've found that ChatGPT's search is not quite as good as Perplexity's, and the quality of the results. However, like again, you have to tell it. And it's how you structure your prompt. And prompt writing is actually quite important. We really haven't talked about this. I think both Ford and I do trainings on this, and there's a reason for that because you have to say when you prompt it. So this is part of the trick here is do not use X, or you have to say, only use these sources. Other than that, it will, bring back incorrect information. I gave it a press release the other day and asked it to zhuzh it up a little bit, and it added a false element to it. I was like, I asked it, where did you get that? They're like, oh, my mistake. So I rewrote the prompt again. And in that I said, do not use, because remember, they've been trained on these outside sources. So they will tap into their own memory banks, and you have to explicitly tell it not to use other resources if you don't want it to. Ford,
Got
did I
it.
miss anything?
No, I mean, I was just looking on that video that I put in the chat. I go through 7 things you have to do for prompt, which just for the purposes of the recording, I'm just going to say them. But you know, what's the context? What's the role? What are the parameters? What's the output? What is the style? What do you want it to format into? Do you want a Word document, PowerPoint, image, you know, and then the iteration, and then just cite your sources. And again, how to set up all those custom instructions and all that I have on that video, because I knew with the time we had, we couldn't get into all of it. But if you're at level 1, really go to Jennifer or I or someone that knows how to do this, so you can start off fresh. Otherwise, you can do some really big liabilities and some really big challenges.
Got it. We're going to do one more question and then we're going to wrap it up. This one was sent in specifically for Jennifer. They asked, can you go more into how to use AI to help you know what designs might be best sellers in your market or for your store? So what's that process like?
Wow. Okay, that's a long, long
Okay.
So I mean, basically where I would start with is, you know, looking at your market. You're going to want to start with understanding the trends there. So I would actually take, and one thing I always want to say here is, if you're taking real data, please anonymize your data so that there's nothing for customer information. But feeding that in with a proper prompt that would take me longer than 3 minutes to put together, and asking that question. And then also, this is where actually places like Perplexity come in handy, because remember, most stores don't use Reddit enough. So I want to say, this is going to sound weird, but Reddit and Google Trends, these are some great places for you to then take that information and cross-reference it. And then you can take things like, last week, there was a great trend broadcast put out by Nan on Podium's webinar, and you can put that information. So you're going to have to get a couple of things and put them together, and then start asking the questions. So I think that's like where I start, and per, you know, Ford and I both saying, like, this is what we do. It is something we need to get granular on, but that's a kind of a good place to start without me literally formulating the prompt for you today.
Yes, fair enough. We are a little short on time here. So we are going to wrap it up. Thanks again to everyone for joining us today.
Thank you for the sound effects, Ford. I love it.
Yeah, we got to add these in here. I'm really enjoying these.
Oh.
So my next question is going to return on May 15th at 2 p.m. Eastern with Physical Retail is Not Dead, where we'll be discussing the current state of physical retail stores. So definitely tune in for that one. Thanks again for joining us today, and please take care.
Thank you for having
Thanks,
me.
everyone.
Bye,
Thank
guys.
you.
Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone.